Crew, what's going on, man? How you doing? Thanks for being here.
Feeling good, brother. How are you?
Man, I'm doing great. It's not cold, so that's all that matters to me. You know what I mean?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Happy to be alive. So I've been by Kai Tai Academy, wow, a few times now, dating back a few years ago. But let's go back in time for a second. How did you even get started?
I've been in martial arts pretty much all my life, as far back as I can remember. I started traditional Korean karate when I was about 5 years old. At that time, it's back in the 70s, my uncles were into martial arts heavily under the instruction and tutelage of Grandmaster Dominic Giacobi, which he's actually in the Guinness Book of World Records. But nonetheless, that's where I first got my start. Those were the days of my superheroes, as I like to call them, Bruce Lee and Jim Kelly. You know, Chuck Norris kind of came on the scene, but Bruce Lee and Jim Kelly, those were my superheroes, along with my uncles, watching them, and they got me into the arts at a very early age.
So how did you go from that to actually starting the Kai Tai Academy?
I was actually living in Philadelphia, and I had started my children training. We were training, they were training, we trained as a family. I was training at a place called Golden Fist Martial Arts. And the fist represented the 5 different styles, which they had the traditional karate, they had the jiu-jitsu, they had Thai boxing, kung fu. It was made up of 5 styles.
Yeah.
And here in Philadelphia, and I was studying under Master Carmichael, a gentleman there. And with my children, with my youngest daughter, when she started, I put her in. Quick funny story. So my daughter was about, I guess, when she was like 3 years old. I was teaching her at the house, showing her little things at the house, how to punch, block, stuff like that.
Yeah.
So I said, this is at 3 years old, Justin. So I said, baby, it's time to go to school. So we go to our local martial arts academy, Golden Fist. This was before I had joined.
Okay.
I walk in with this 3-year-old at their kids class, and they're looking at me, and he's like, sir, this isn't one of those places, it's like a real dojo, and she's too young. We normally start at 6 years old. I'm like, yeah, but I've been in martial arts all my life, and I teach her at home. And he's like, sir, she's 3 years old. Come back when she's 6. All right. So we leave, go back home, still training her at the house. And we come back 2 years later. She's 5 years old now. So we walk back in. I'm like, we're ready. She's 5. He's like, oh man, this guy again. Like, we start at 6. And mind you, Imani was extremely small, tiny. She's actually the smallest of all my children.
Okay.
He was like, sir, we start at 6, come back in a year. Well, they happened to be doing a kids class at that time, and they were sparring. I said, if you would, please just, let her check it out tonight. If she's not ready, we'll come back next year. I'll go home, so he agrees. So we go put all the gear on. I'm super I got her in the corner. I'm like, all right, Imani, this is what we train for. Go out there and do your thing. And she went out there and performed extremely well. 5 years old. It was an amazing first night. He invited us to join, and
nice.
I, join as well. And that was and that's when we started. We started back at that school, and so I got back into training when my children came about. I had been training pretty much all my life, but when I went off to college, I actually trained during college. I was at undergrad at Lincoln University in Pennsylvania, and they had a martial arts school in the town of Lincoln, and I trained and studied there. But after I came out, I had stopped for a while, got into life, got married, that whole.
Yeah.
But when I had my children, I said, I am going to get back into martial arts. I'm going to train them. This is who I am. This is what I do. So we all started as a family there. Myself and my three girls and my three children started at Golden Fist. And we trained there until um, Rami Ibrahim, who was one of the instructors there, who was actually a kid, uh, opened up his school. Interesting story here. So Rami Ibrahim, he is, I think, 17 maybe years old. And at that time, I was in extremely good shape. I was young. Um, I trained. This is just martial arts is who I am. It's all
Yeah.
my life. And really, really talented. So we would go at it. And he was the best one in the school, and he and I would go at it. And I'm like, man, what is this kid in here doing? What kind of art are you doing, dude? And he was like, well, this is Thai boxing, because I had never heard of it.
Yeah.
So we started training Thai more frequently, and I became a lover of the art of Muay Thai. And this kid, man, they had put him on the circuit. And you got to think back, and that during that time, this was before UFC. This was way back. So MMA hadn't come on the scene, and Muay Thai wasn't popular at all. Not here in the United States, anyway.
Yeah.
Well, for a traditional martial artist, and you'll understand what I mean by this, when we would go to tournaments, it was like contact. So Rami would go to these tournaments and he's busting guys' nose, knocking guys out. So they had to find something that was that could fit who he was, the type of contact, full contact. So that's how they kind of got into the Thai boxing circuit, because as you
Okay.
guys, much more combative. So I kind of fell in love with this kid, man, and we became very close. And at some point, he decided he was going to open up his own school. So at that time, I had become one of the instructors there, one of the head instructors at Golden Fist, and I was family there. But Rami was the best, and he was going to open up his own school. And I said, my thing has always been, I want to be the best at whatever it is I do. So if you want to be the best, you have to train with the best.
Yeah.
He left. I left with him. And he opened up his school, and we were first students. I took my family with him, and he was actually fighting on the circuit at that time. So I became his sparring partner and his training partner. And traveling all over the place. He became number one, the World Muay Thai champion. He's a Palestinian kid, and I mean, you look him up. He is Thai boxing for the United States. His accolades precede him. So that's how I really got honed into Muay Thai. Kind of got away from some of the other traditional styles that I studied, the Wing Chun, the Korean karate, and that thing. And I studied with Rami for a long time. Became his sparring partner, his training partner, his head instructor, and I grew right along with him in his school. And then things had changed in my life, brought me to North Carolina here in Wilson, and I wanted to open up a school. And I opened up. When I first got here to North Carolina, I went to every martial arts school in the area. I had this little DVD that I got made in Philadelphia before I came here, and I was just taking it all around to all the guys. And hey, Bishop Holmes, I'm a martial artist. I'm moving new to the area, wanting to introduce myself. And but what I found was North Carolina was extremely different than Philadelphia. In Philly, every Friday we would have different schools coming to our school. We trained together, compete. I mean, that it was a martial arts community.
Yeah.
But here was a lot different. You know, everybody was kind of standoffish. Everybody's kind of doing their own thing, you know. So let's just say I wasn't welcome with open arms when I got here. I met everybody, but I really wasn't welcome with open arms. But I found this gentleman, um, Master Brody, in Brentwood Shopping Plaza. And he's since passed, actually. But he allowed me to rent space from his school. So I rented space there. That was the first place I rented space at, and I started teaching there. And because I wasn't teaching traditional martial arts karate, so to speak, it wasn't a conflict of interest.
Mhm.
Although I had my black belt in Tong Sudo, Korean karate, and he was teaching Taekwondo, which are pretty much the same style, you know.
Yeah.
But I was focused primarily on Thai boxing, on Muay Thai. So it wasn't a conflict. He let me rent out space there, and I started teaching and training there, until I opened my own place downtown.
Who do you serve?
This is going to be a curveball here. I read the questions last night, and when I read who do you serve, the first thing that came to mind for me was my Lord and Savior.
Mm.
That's what came to mind. And I know that's not what you were asking, but that's what came to mind.
Yeah.
God being first in my life, blessing me with all the skills, all the opportunities, everything that I am, everything that I do. I wouldn't be anything without him. That's who I serve. But
I love that.
In terms of business wise, I serve the community. I've taught to this point. Oh man, you'd probably be shocked to know that I've taught, the last time I checked, which was during COVID, when we were stuck at COVID. I was going back through all of my registration forms. It was close to 2,000
Wow.
members. And I think it's a huge number because we're in such a small place. And I never thought that I, actually taught that many people.
Yeah.
But it was 2,000 members from that time. So yeah, it's pretty interesting.
What do you think is some of the common problems when people are like, I want to do martial arts in general, or they decide I want to get into kickboxing? What are some of like the common problems that people ending up running into?
When people start thinking about Thai boxing, they have these preconceived notions that, that I have to be a fighter to do it. Or, I always hear this, well, I'm getting in shape now to come, train with you. How are you doing that? You got to be here.
Right.
So it's just the myth of, that combative fighter-esque type of thing, I would
Gotcha.
say.
Yeah. Now, given all your success, what is the biggest challenge that you're having now?
The biggest challenge as of late was COVID for me personally. We were closed for a year.
Yeah.
We're closed for a year, we shut down, and we had to start all over again. It's tough.
What are some adversities that you have overcome, and what are the biggest lessons that you've learned from them?
Coming here in Wilson, I remember teaching Thai boxing as a person of color in down south. I remember I was This was probably about 13, 14 years ago. A gentleman walks in, I believe he was law enforcement, walks in. He said, yeah, it's Muay Thai. You teach Muay Thai? Yes, sir. You're not Thai? No. You trained in Thailand? No, sir. Certified in Thailand? No, sir. Do you speak Thai? No, sir. I turned around and walked out. That was a huge lesson for me. And what that did was cause me to start another journey. It was from that point I reached out to my instructor, and at that time, no one from our school had gone to Thailand. And I'd asked if I could go to Thailand and train, get certified, get my crew status, so forth and so on. And I got the blessings to do so. And because of that, I went to Thailand and got certified as a crew. I studied. I lived with the Thai. I stayed in the temple. I, became a part of the culture. And I'd gone back at least twice every year since then, taking students back and forth to Thailand to get an idea of, what Thai boxing is, the culture, the people, so that was a huge change in my life. That experience changed a whole lot for me.
What do you like most about what you do?
Having the ability to affect lives.
Mm.
It's a huge responsibility, but being given the opportunity to change lives.
If you had to start over again, what would you do differently?
Nothing.
Wow.
Because then I wouldn't get to where I am now. I would have lost a ton of experiences, and who knows what that change would bring about.
What's the best piece of advice that you've ever gotten?
I can remember back being young, my mother asked me this question. I was in elementary school. We were walking home from elementary school. My mom would ask me things like, what is it that you want to be? Oh, Mom, I want to travel the world, teaching martial arts and learning, how to fight in different styles and, this and that. She said, well, what are you doing today to become that tomorrow?
Mm. What else do you want to share that maybe I didn't think to ask you?
I think this is pretty cool, man. I think one of the things, I don't know if the world knows this, but you're a phenomenal martial artist yourself. I had the opportunity to meet you when you were a young kid. I had a chance to watch you grow as not only as a martial artist, but as a man. I remember the first time I saw you, I was like, man, this kid thinks he's pretty good, because you were.
Right.
And you carried that, I'm not going to call it arrogance, that confidence.
Yeah.
You were sharp, and being in it as long as I've been, there's certain things you can see right off the bat.
Right.
And just having had the opportunity, watching you grow into yourself. Now you're married, you have a child. It's crazy.
Yeah.
I can look back, I can actually think back to when, you were a kid in martial arts, man.
Yep.
So, and then watching you develop as a martial artist, watching you grow, even when we started training together.
Yeah.
It's just a beautiful thing. It's a blessing. It is a tremendous blessing. For me, martial arts has been such a blessing. And I'm so thankful to be able to do what I do. And I don't take any of it for granted. God has been extremely great. He's been extremely good and has shown a tremendous amount of favor to me, and has allowed me the opportunity to do what I do. And I think part of that is why I believe I've been as successful as I have been, because I know where my blessings come from.
Mm.
I don't hesitate to speak on that.
Where can our listeners and viewers go to learn more about you? What's your
Oh
address?
man.
What's your phone number? Let them know.
Well, you got to come to the school. You got to drink the water and taste it and see if that's what you really like. But we're located 306 Nast Street, Wilson, North Carolina. You could go online, ktamma.com. It's the website. You could Google my name and go to YouTube, put my name in, my son's name, who is a phenomenal martial artist in his own right. And it's just so much there. My number is 252-373-3204. We have a ton of programs, kids programs, adult programs. We do Muay Thai, kickboxing, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, submission wrestling or catch wrestling, judo. We have a women's only program, strength and conditioning program. We do a lot.
And I'll say this, if you want to get in freaking shape, all right, this is the place you got to go. Holy cow. Well, man, Crew, I appreciate you so much, man. Thank you for the invitation. You're
Brother,
a great
God
guy.
bless you, man. Keep doing what you're doing, man. You never cease to amaze me. God's light continues to shine through you, all over you. So keep shining, man, and keep doing what you're doing.
Thank you again. And
Thank
everybody,
you.
thanks for watching. Thanks
Thank
for
you.
listening. I'll see you
Yes,
next time.
sir.